Hello and welcome along to another Neo cast. This is the last of the games that we did in preparation for the Oxford Store Championship. So tune in next time for the first in the series for that. And this game is between, on the left is Gordon playing his noise deck, and on the right is myself playing my Foundry deck, which appeared in a previous video also. So turn one, just icing R&D, playing a hedge fund, taking a credit. The indication here that there is nothing stealable in HQ. Noise checks anyway, access Nash. It's a tough decision to make, to decide whether to trash assets like that. Ideally, you'd get them when the corpus has been forced to spend some resources installing and possibly rezzing them. Ash is one that is good to hit if you can as well. So Noise continues to turn by installing a cache and running on R&D, hitting Enigma. So that is the end of Noise's first turn. So the fact that an Enigma was installed on R&D and nothing on HQ suggests it was a low ice opening hand. Neither side mulliganed. There's a low ice opening hand for the Foundry. I don't think I'm a fan of having just an Enigma. As I mentioned before, ice in the Foundry tends to replicate, so the Enigma is perfectly good, except the Yogg is so common that it can come to nothing, even if you have multiple copies out. Just a shoring up turn from the Foundry, and then a lot of drawing from Noise and installing daily casts. So you can already tell it would be a kind of power mill strategy from Noise here. I mean, seeing Cache and Parasite early on. Parasite will make short work of Enigma as well. Obviously, Gordon knows that I have more ice, and I can kind of easily get more. Another Cache. So definitely some aggressive milling. I did install an asset on my previous turn. So Gordon needs to be aware that it could be Jackson. So obviously a high priority card against Noise. It says an executive boot camp, which allows me to raise some ice for a slight discount. Another Enigma, which pulls a third Enigma into my hand. And managed to draw. I know all the start of turn stuff is over. So the Enigma's on R&D is going to go away anyway. In this position, I'd like to see the Enigma trashed and replaced with something else. Obviously, I know that I've drawn another Enigma. I believe I actually will do that in this turn. Yeah, there it is. Because it's all too possible to see a medium or something like Noise, and you don't want to see that with an undefended R&D. And a couple of credits. Since Parasite is going to be a strategy, then I know that I have a lot of fairly cheap ice in this deck, so I need to be able to afford to res it. So Gordon installs a Mimic and a Data Sucker, and runs Archives just to check if I have a Jackson. But here's a Quandary, another Kogate, which obviously replicates with the Foundry. So James is leading in here, saying that a great use of Executive Bootcamp is to fetch Jackson Howard, which can be immediately installed and used if necessary, which is good use for it. I forgot on this turn to use the Executive Bootcamp to res more ice, de-ice on R&D for instance, for a discount. It could have been useful. It makes everything visible to Gordon, so he knows what breakers he needs to get him where, and gives his parasites the opportunity to come into effect, I guess. So this is me doing exactly what James just suggested, actually. I genuinely don't remember, but I assume that, considering the amount of fast milling that's happened early on, Gordon hit at least one agenda. So being able to draw Jackson is very useful. And that's an annoying position for Gordon. So installing the remote and take a credit, he has to assume that's Jackson. So I'm not sure what his priority is here. I guess maybe he wants to get into archives or that server as quickly as possible to force me to use the Jackson. So another quandary, not too surprising for Gordon, because obviously he knows that I just fished one with the Foundry, but he was not prepared to break it. And once again it replicates, so I have an incredibly low strength code gate intensive ice setup at the moment, which is just terrifying against an Anarch, because any minute they could draw a Yogg and suddenly all of my servers are essentially iceless. And the comment I just made there was that with the Foundry you have to know when to stop using its ability to fish out ice. It becomes very dangerous if you spend the first half of the game aggressively using the Foundry ability. By the second half of the game, the density of your R&D is going to be that much better for the runner, which means big dig runners, I'm talking kind of Maker's Eye, Shapers, that kind of thing, can really profit from it. But also Noise, because he mills randomly, it increases the chance that the cards he's milling are genders. So you always have to be careful anyway about not overusing the Foundry's ability, but you kind of have to be somewhat more restrained against Noise. So Noise has spent his turn drawing and using some economy. There are 2 cards installed in that remote now. Gordon knows that I had an Ash at the start of the game. It's reasonable to assume that one of them is that, which means that he needs to have a fair amount of money if he's going to get in, or he needs to be able to get in twice. He stalls Crypsis as well, another virus, but it gives him breaker options and gets through Quandary and the like for very little. So more icing up on R&D and what seems to be being set up as a scoring remote. So Gordon plays Deja Vu. It's reasonable to assume he's going to get back to viruses, indeed he is. So Cash and Parasite. Great selection and great to be able to recur. So Parasite obviously blows up Quandary immediately. And then he runs on a remote. So it turned out it was another Jackson in the remote, which I decided to use because he could trash it, and I had to decide there and then. Having decided not to res the ice, I believe at this stage there are a few points of agendas in archives. I think you can actually see one there as I kind of leaf through archives. I actually deliberately left behind a Sentinel defense program, which were 2 points. I deliberately left it in there because I thought that. So Gordon trashes the ash. Second time I'm asking. I thought that I would kind of be able to feed Gordon some agenda points. I think I had at this point in my hand a punitive counterstrike and an archive memories, which meant that if I got rich enough and at some point he got into archives and got a non-winning amount of agenda points, I'd hopefully be able to flatline him on the following turn. It could have been, maybe it was reckless. From what I recalled, the 3 cards I pulled back with that second Jackson were two agendas, and at least one of which was a 3-point agenda, and I think it was an Eliza's, which I kind of wanted to get back on my deck. So another card in the remote, which has also got another piece of ice. Only 5 credits though to my name, so there can't be anything particularly dangerous. And sure enough, Gordon decides to run. I haven't drawn a couple of cards, so I didn't res either, and he got in and trashed the Eliza's with no delay. He's played against me and this deck too often. So Cash comes back out. He's now got all 3 on the table, but no Aesop's in sight. I know Gordon well, he's a very good player, and I can make the assumption there's no way there isn't an Aesop's in this deck. The economy is just too good, too efficient for Gordon to turn down. So at this point, from what I remember, I'm still living in fear of a Yogg. I know that I have a kind of possible kill combo in hand if I can just draw up to power it, and I'm not that worried about him getting in. I just don't want him to win in one turn, and I need to know that I'm rich enough when it happens that I can pull it off. Meanwhile, another parasite. So another mill on Enigma this time, but it won't last more than a turn, thanks to Grimoire. So yeah, there's a bit of thinking here. I think at this point I decided I was just going to get rich. I didn't draw any economy, so I just took 3 credits. Because I was just trying to work out. Gordon was floating a fairly low amount of credits. I mean, without any stops on the table, his cashes are just kind of sitting around. But he's routinely drawing 1 or 2 cards a turn, and it's consistently got 5 cards in hand. So, just a bit of refereeing. Gordon accidentally went over his MU on the previous turn, so trashes a cash, respectively. So he runs R&D, and at last is not a barrier. I didn't, for some reason, didn't fish out a copy. No, I did. I remembered. Okay, so it's useful to get a non-code gate on the table. So a lot of drawing in from Gordon. Then he played Knife had worse as well on this turn. He's obviously trying to get something, presumably the ESOPs, which will suddenly turn his economy on. And obviously he's throwing away good virus options like Imp, just because he can't keep them in hand. I guess it's possible that he's drawing for Yogg as well, although it's less useful now. Although I think he mentioned at some point, it might have been by now or maybe a little later in the game, they actually didn't have a Yogg in this deck. I don't remember what his code gate option was, but it surprised me, to say the least. Some more decisions from me here. I drew an accelerated beast test at this point. Conventionally, I would have just installed it in the remote. Maybe added some more ice. It depends what the remote ice was, and just hope to get it through. Hope it would survive a turn. Noise isn't particularly rich, so hopefully I can make it expensive. In the end, I decided just to defend my centrals and take credit. So I'm keeping it in hand. So an inject for a Hades shard, which is obviously a very interesting one for Noise. He doesn't have the money to install it, but I don't have Jackson on the table or anything anyway. So daily costs can provide some economy for now. I think at this point I was very worried because he had a Crypsis, so he could click it and then run, and with sufficient money get into any of my servers, because they're only 2 ice deep, all of them. I wasn't yet confident enough about my economy that I could, strongly defend scoring remote. The few cards I had to put in the remote, Gordon would run quite aggressively. And there's the ESOPs. Gordon run quite aggressively. In all cases, so far they've been assets, Elizas, Jackson, that kind of thing, and not agendas. But I was not confident that an agenda would survive a turn in the remote. So Gordon Funny has his ESOPs. He also has Hades Shard. So I need to be very careful at this point. I mean, I've already said that I kind of wanted him to take some points out of Archives, but yeah, it was a strange kind of balancing act for me.
Every time I see you playing it, you make the sad Gordon face. It's the sad Mr. Lee face where you miss the lead. And then put it like on. It's the same with it.
So I'm just checking my my remote ice, and I do finally install in it. So Gordon takes 2 credits, then installs ESOPs, and then runs on click 4. Now this is really interesting because normally, I don't remember what it was in the server, I think the second piece of ice would have kept him out pending Crypsis. But I think I was just hoping he wouldn't run, but without realising it, he'd run on click 4 against a remote that contained on the outside a Heimdall 2.0. It cost 11 credits, which coincidentally is exactly the amount I have. So while it was an agenda, and I was trying to work out if I could let him in punitive, but he had 4 cards in hand, so it wouldn't have worked. He was convinced it wasn't a Janus or anything like that, but it wasn't far off. If it had been, say, 3-point agenda, I could have let him in, maybe cost him some money and hopefully been able to punitive, but as it was, I actually decided to res after some thinking. I bankrupted myself to do it, but the fact he ran on click 4 and only had I think six credits to his name, meant that he could not afford to break any of the subroutines of Crypsis. So he just took 2 brain damage. Even though I bankrupted myself, it's still really useful for a start hit the Hades Shard. And David's not bad either. But also, it meant that he now had a maximum hand size of 3, which definitely turned on Punitive. It meant he'd only need to steal 2 points to make double Punitive an option. Of course, I desperately needed to get back up from nothing. There's a slight misplay there. I actually played a peak efficiency on 0. At large, it doesn't matter because for my 3rd click, I just took a credit, so I could have just rejiggered my turn and it would have been legal. I was just too eager to get back up from 0, especially now that ESOPs is on the table, starting to sell off the caches, making money with daily casts. It meant that it was going to be tough for me to stay ahead if I was going to pull a punitive win, because I would have to be able to outright beat Gordon on at least 1 trace, possibly 2, depending how many gen points he managed to steal. So Deja Vu for a cache and a Parasite, I think 2 caches? I don't remember. No, it was a cache and a Parasite. Because obviously there's a strength 0 ice on archives, so Parasite is a great option to be able to burst in when he feels the time is right. He has to suspect there's a couple of points in archives right now. Oh, interesting. So he actually used Parasite on the ice wall, which did kill it because of Grimoire. He needs to worry that the card in the remote might be Jackson. So, Noise runs R&D and I decline to Reds, and Gun trashes a Jackson. Which is obviously that's a great access for Noise, because it's great to be able to remove Jacksons from the game, or rather, from play for now. So, he has a small hand size and only a couple of credits, but ESOPs is quite annoying. And this is me reacting because I just drew Eli, which he would have had a real trouble breaking. It's tough with Crypsis. But I decided to score out the ABT, and of course the Foundry fired to mitigate the risk somewhat. So I installed and raised Janus, thanks to the Accelerator Beast test and Foundry. The Foundry actually failed to find, which is hilarious because it's HB and Accelerator Beat test and lasers, so you'd expect there to be more than one in the deck. So now Gordon has to work out where they are. For instance, they could easily be on the table. I can't afford to res it, but it makes things like a lasers really dangerous. So Usopp sells cash again. Daily casts money comes in. That's what happens when you're an internet celebrity, I guess. You get regular money from Noise. So another Deja Vu for, you guessed it, a cache and a Parasite. It's pretty standard combination. So he plays Parasite on the Foundry on archives. That was actually click 4, so there was no indication that he was going to run this time. So I believe at this point there were 4 points in archives, and I did not have Jackson. So I decided that I was going to try to bluff him into the fact that game was in archives, maybe, by just immediately icing archives, taking some money, and hoping that this turn would pan out. So from Noise's point of view, all indication is that archives is definitely worth running on. He hasn't seen a punitive or any indication that there's any kind of punishment in this deck, so it's kind of perfect. There's only 2 of punitive in the deck, but it's good for the kind of mid game, because I'll hopefully have a copy. Archive Memories can stand in, so I let him in and show him his 4 points. So, but I showed him all the other great stuff he milled. Archive Memories, Eliza's. It's, yeah, super annoying. So he takes 4 points. And Swords of Clenching draws. Now, I miscounted how many clicks he'd used. I thought he'd only used 3. So I started asking very pointed questions, suggesting that I might have a punitive in hand, not realising he has a click left. Bit of an error on my part. Too eager. I thought it was on my side. So he still has a click left. I was too eager. So he has a tough decision to make now. He knows he only has a 3-card hand anyway. So he still has a cash. So he has 2 cards in hand, and he stole 4 points. So punitive is definitely on the table if I can afford it. So what he's talking about here is he also had a Utopia Shard in his hand. So he thought instead of playing cash, he could have installed the Utopia Shard, hoped to kick out the punitive from my hand. Now, because of how it panned out, he would have had to kick out the punitive and the Archive Memories, I think, because he would have been so poor. So actually Archive Memories click 1 for a hedge fund, because I needed the money. But then a punitive did it. I could pay to make it a trace of over 10. And he only had 10 credits. So that was it. It was a really strange game for me, because I felt like it was a good way to combat noise, was to leave some agendas in archives, keep hold of my punitives, and hope that I got my timing right, and I did. It obviously easily could have backfired. There'd been more agendas than anticipated going to archives, if he'd over-milled me, anything like that. Having said that, it was decent play from Gorn as well. He was unlucky that he didn't have an I've Had Worse, for instance, in his hand or anything like that, because that would have totally that could have scuppered my plan. Although actually it would not have, because he took 4 points, so he would actually need to have 4 cards, even with an I've Had Worse in hand. So you can get around that. I think on his last turn he installed cash, which was an interesting. He was trying to get his money up, but maybe playing the Utopia Shard would have been a better play. I was quite poor. I had to use my Archive Memories to get hedge funds for the money to pay for the Counter-Strike. So if you could have hit the punitive or the Archive Memories, I think that he would have quite possibly survived the turn. It's a really useful card. I've not seen it played that much, but I think it definitely has power against any kind of operation-based combo deck, and I mean that's kind of over-describing punitive, but I suppose it is a combo at that. Anyway, that was the last game that we have footage of from our preparation for the Oxford Store Championship. So tune in next time for the first in a series of videos that we took from the actual Store Championship, which was a really good day. I really enjoyed it, and all the people that I went with enjoyed it as well, and everyone there was really nice. Anyway, we'll talk more about that when those videos come. But thank you once again for tuning in. I've been Johno, and I'll see you next time.